Summer of 1943. A German soldier stares at the brown liquid bubbling inside a glass bottle, carbonation rising like tiny fireworks he'd never witnessed before. 2 years in the North African desert, surviving on stale crackers and bitter coffee that tasted like burnt dirt. And now this, a sweet, fizzing drink called Coca-Cola that cost him just 5 cents from the camp store. The guards told him something that made his head spin. American kids bought this stuff with their allowance money, like it was nothing. That summer, across prison camps scattered throughout America, more than 370,000 German prisoners of war would come face to face with a truth that shattered everything the Nazi propaganda machine had drilled into their minds. They'd been told America was weak, fractured, incapable. What they found instead was a nation where ice cream wasn't a luxury reserved for the elite. It was just Tuesday, where soft drinks flowed like water, where candy bars were so common that guards handed them out without a second thought. These weren't delicacies. They were everyday items that most German children had never even tasted in their entire lives. And these simple pleasures, these sugary treats and frozen desserts, would tear down Nazi ideology faster and more completely than any propaganda campaign ever could. The math was written in sweetness and bubbles, in chocolate melting on tongues, and cream freezing into something impossibly smooth. It revealed an industrial machine so powerful, so efficient, that German sacrifice suddenly looked less like noble duty and more like pointless suffering. What started as wide-eyed amazement at American candy would become something far deeper, a complete rewiring of how these men understood the world. When the Afrika Korps finally surrendered in Tunisia during May of 1943, roughly 250,000 German and Italian soldiers walked into Allied custody. These were hardened desert veterans who'd pushed British forces all the way back to Egypt under Rommel's command. They expected brutal treatment, starvation, maybe worse. Nazi propaganda had painted Americans as savage and cruel. Instead, within hours of laying down their weapons, they encountered something called K-rations. American soldiers complained about these field rations constantly, called them bland and boring. To the Germans, they were treasure chests. Inside each box, crackers that weren't stale, processed cheese, candy, fruit bars, instant coffee, sugar tablets, cigarettes. Soldiers who'd been scraping by on minimal rations for months treated these emergency meals like they'd stumbled into a feast hall. Military records from the processing camps in North Africa tell the story in breakfast menus: pancakes drowning in syrup, fresh eggs still steaming, milk, actual fresh milk. These were foods that had vanished from German military supplies years ago, and here they were, being served to prisoners, to enemies. The systematic feeding began immediately, though nobody quite understood yet what it would do to the minds of these men. One German officer would later tell the International Red Cross something that stuck with investigators for years. He said, "We expected to starve as prisoners. That's what we'd been told would happen. Instead, the Americans fed us better than our own army ever had." That confusion, that cognitive dissonance about American resources, that's where their education really began. The Liberty ships that carried prisoners across the Atlantic that summer of '43 became floating classrooms in American abundance. These vessels, mass-produced at speeds that defied logic, one completed every 42 hours at peak production, ferried up to 30,000 prisoners monthly to the United States. Naval records show something remarkable. Prisoner rations aboard these ships matched, sometimes exceeded what the crew was eating. Roughly 3,500 calories daily, including fresh-baked bread, meat, vegetables, coffee with sugar and milk freely available. The refrigeration systems, standard equipment on American ships, kept food fresh throughout the entire 2-week crossing. And then there was the ice cream. Multiple documented accounts confirm it. Ice cream served on ships in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean to German prisoners of war. The USS General M.B. Stewart's log from July 1943 records serving ice cream to prisoners on the 4th of July, using the ship's onboard ice cream maker that could produce 10 gallons per batch. For men who hadn't seen ice cream since before the war started, Eating frozen dessert in the middle of the ocean felt like witnessing magic. When ships docked at ports like Norfolk and Newport News, German prisoners got their first real glimpse of an America that Nazi propaganda had declared couldn't possibly exist. The Norfolk Naval Base sprawled across 4,300 acres of waterfront, handling more cargo in a single day than major German ports managed in a week. At the port exchanges, little shops for dock workers, prisoners caught sight of shelves lined with candy bars, Hershey's, Mars, Nestle, brands they'd never heard of. Military procurement records from 43 show these exchanges stocked dozens of candy varieties, all selling at standard prices. 5 cents for most bars, the exact same price charged anywhere in America. The journey inland by train provided another layer of education. Unlike the cattle cars used for transport across Europe, German prisoners traveled in passenger coaches, some with dining cars that served full meals. Documented menus from July of '43 show fried chicken, vegetables, pie, and coffee. Prisoners discovered this wasn't special treatment designed to impress them. This was just how Americans traveled by train. The prison camp system built across America housed prisoners in conditions that went beyond Geneva Convention requirements. Camp Crossville in Tennessee was typical of the larger facilities: electric lights, hot running water, flush toilets, heated barracks. But it was the camp exchanges, the PX stores, that delivered the deepest psychological impact. Army Quartermaster records show these camp stores stocked multiple soft drink brands: Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, all kinds of candy bars and confections, ice cream wherever refrigeration allowed, cigarettes and tobacco, fresh fruit and snacks, even beer at 3.2% alcohol content. Prisoners earned 80 cents daily for labor, later bumped up to $1. With candy bars and Coca-Cola both priced at 5 cents, a single day's wage could buy 16 items, an abundance beyond anything they'd imagined back in Germany, where such products, if you could find them at all, required special connections or party membership. Coca-Cola became more than just a drink. It became the symbol of American industrial democracy in a bottle. The Coca-Cola Company's wartime production hit levels that seemed impossible. 5 billion bottles produced in 1943 alone. The company had a military contract that guaranteed 5-cent Coca-Cola to American servicemen anywhere in the world. A logistical commitment that required unprecedented coordination. German prisoners discovered that this soft drink, unknown to most of them before capture, was everywhere in America. Every camp received regular deliveries. Work details outside the camps observed vending machines and coolers at gas stations, factories, schools. Americans of every age and social class drank it casually, sometimes tossing half-empty bottles in the trash without a second thought. The standardization amazed technically minded prisoners. Coca-Cola tasted identical, whether you drank it in Maine or Texas, a feat of quality control that exceeded anything German industry had ever achieved. The syrup concentrate manufactured in Atlanta and distributed nationwide to bottling plants represented an industrial coordination that challenged every Nazi assumption about American chaos and disorder. Historical records from the Coca-Cola Company archives confirm that many prison camps received weekly deliveries of 200 to 300 cases, each case containing 24 bottles. Camp Hearn in Texas alone consumed approximately 7,000 bottles weekly during the summer of '43. Ice cream in American prison camps seemed like a fantasy to Germans who hadn't seen it since before the war, yet Army records confirm it. Ice cream was regularly served in camps with adequate refrigeration during the summer months. The military considered ice cream essential for morale, so critical that they built specialized ice cream ships for the Pacific Fleet. At Camp Shelby, Mississippi, the 4th of July celebration in 1943 included ice cream made right there on site. Prisoners watched in disbelief as hand-cranked freezers produced gallons using ice, salt, cream, sugar, and flavorings. The casual use of scarce resources, ice in July, cream, sugar, all for entertainment food, demonstrated priorities that Germans simply couldn't fathom. By 1944, many camps had electric ice cream makers. The variety available, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, butter pecan, exceeded what German ice cream parlors had offered before the war even started. Prisoners could purchase ice cream bars for 10 cents, ice cream sandwiches for the same price, or cups of various flavors. Army procurement records show larger camps ordering 50 to 100 gallons of ice cream weekly during summer months. The frequency varied by location and season, but prisoners regularly enjoyed this frozen luxury that had completely vanished from German life. Sugar consumption in American prison camps hit German prisoners with particular force. Back in Germany, sugar was strictly rationed. Civilians received 280 grams monthly when it was available at all. In American camps, sugar sat in bowls on mess hall tables for unlimited use. Quartermaster records from 43 to 45 show camps, receiving 100-pound bags of refined sugar weekly. Camp bakeries used sugar freely. Cakes, cookies, pies appeared regularly on menus. Mess halls sweetened coffee, tea, cereals, and desserts without any restriction whatsoever. One documented incident from Camp Aliceville, Alabama, illustrates the stark contrast. In August of 43, humid weather hardened several hundred pounds of sugar, making it difficult to use, rather than steam it and recover it, which is exactly what Germans would have done. Kitchen staff tossed it in the garbage and ordered replacement supplies. German prisoners working in the kitchen were reportedly upset, even distressed by this casual waste. American chocolate consumption patterns revealed what democratic abundance actually looked like in practice. Major manufacturers, Hershey's, Mars, Nestle, produced millions of bars monthly despite wartime restrictions. The military alone purchased 380 million pounds of chocolate products during the war years. Prison camp exchanges stocked multiple chocolate varieties, standard Hershey bars, ration bars, emergency chocolate bars, various candy bars containing chocolate, all available for 5 to 10 cents. Prisoners discovered Americans had preferences among chocolate brands, casually choosing one over another like it mattered. Red Cross packages distributed monthly to prisoners included chocolate bars among other items. American Red Cross records show standard parcels contained chocolate or candy bars, 2 packs of instant coffee, processed cheese, crackers, canned meat, cigarettes, soap. These packages supplemented regular rations, providing luxury items that exceeded what German civilians received as basic rations back home. Thanksgiving of 1943 introduced German prisoners to American holiday abundance on a scale that dwarfed anything Germany could organize. This purely American celebration demonstrated national coordination of consumption that made German organizational efforts look amateur. Army records confirm that all prison camps served traditional Thanksgiving dinner: roast turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes and gravy, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, vegetables, pumpkin pie, coffee, and milk. The logistics required to provide turkey dinners to 400 to 25,000 prisoners of war, plus millions of American servicemen worldwide, showcased organizational capacity that was almost frightening. The fact that German prisoners received the exact same meal as American soldiers emphasized an equality of treatment that directly contradicted Nazi racial hierarchy. Christmas of 1943 brought something German prisoners never expected: generosity from American civilians. Church groups, civic organizations, individual citizens sent packages to German prisoners of war, to the enemy. The American Friends Service Committee alone distributed 50,000 Christmas packages to enemy prisoners. These packages typically contained homemade cookies, candy, toiletries, games and books, cigarettes, writing materials. Local communities near camps often provided additional support. In Tonkawa, Oklahoma, townspeople delivered homemade treats to German prisoners at the local camp. In Hearne, Texas, church groups brought Christmas cookies and candy to Camp Hearne. This civilian kindness toward enemies challenged Nazi ideology at its foundation. Americans who had family members fighting and dying against Germany nevertheless showed charity to German prisoners, demonstrating strength through mercy rather than vengeance, a concept that made no sense in Nazi thinking. As labor shortages intensified across America, German prisoners worked increasingly outside the camps, witnessing American food production firsthand. By 1944, approximately 100,000 prisoners worked in agriculture and food processing, gaining intimate knowledge of American abundance from the inside. In Michigan orchards, prisoners picked cherries destined for maraschino production, those bright red garnishes that topped ice cream sundaes. The volume staggered them, single orchards producing tons of fruit for purely decorative purposes. At canneries, prisoners observed quality control that rejected perfectly edible food for minor imperfections. Del Monte records from 44 show approximately 15% of fruit was rejected for canning due to size irregularities or minor blemishes, typically diverted to animal feed. Sugar beet processing in Colorado and Nebraska revealed agricultural mechanization beyond anything German engineering had achieved. Single farms produced more sugar beets than entire German regions. Prisoners learned that American sugar production from both cane and beets reached approximately 7 million tons annually, finally explaining the casual abundance they'd witnessed everywhere. German prisoners working near schools witnessed early versions of organized school lunch programs. Children received hot lunches including milk, protein, and vegetables. The National School Lunch Act would formalize this in 1946, but precedent programs operated during the war. The milk program particularly impressed German observers. Many schools provided fresh milk to children daily. The logistics of daily milk delivery to thousands of schools demonstrated organizational capacity that Germany couldn't achieve even for military supplies. Some school cafeterias offered ice cream for additional purchase. The concept of children buying frozen desserts at school while German children faced food shortages back home created profound impact among prisoner observers. When minimum security prisoners ate at American diners under guard, they encountered democratic abundance in its purest form. These small restaurants offered menus that would have graced elite German establishments, available to anyone with modest funds. Documented prices from 1944 show hamburgers for 25 cents, Coca-Cola for 5 cents, pie slices for 15 cents, ice cream sundaes for 25 cents, full dinner specials for 65 to 75 cents. The equality of service struck them hardest. Anyone could order anything. A factory worker and bank president ate identical meals at adjacent counter stools, served by the same waitress for the same price. As prisoners gained access to American publications, they discovered production statistics that dwarfed German efforts completely. 1944. American production. Documented figures. Sugar approximately 7 million tons. Chocolate and cocoa products 380 million pounds for military alone. Coca-Cola 5 billion bottles in 43. Ice cream over 500 million gallons. Milk 119 billion pounds. German production during the same period. Sugar heavily rationed and primarily from beets. Chocolate military priority only. Soft drinks minimal production. Ice cream virtually non-existent, milk severely rationed. These numbers, published openly in American media, demonstrated that America's wartime production exceeded Germany's peacetime peaks. By late 1944, something extraordinary was happening. German prisoners of war were sending food packages to Germany, rather than receiving them. Using camp wages, prisoners purchased American products to mail home: chocolate bars, instant coffee, canned goods. International Red Cross records confirm this reversal. German prisoners in America sent approximately 11 million parcels to Germany during their captivity, most containing food items. The impact on German families, receiving American abundance from imprisoned relatives while they faced starvation and freedom, profoundly undermined Nazi ideology at its core. American rationing implemented during the war revealed the gulf between societies more clearly than any statistic could. Americans complained bitterly about sugar rationing of 2 pounds monthly per person, more than triple the German allowance when it was available. American meat rationing at 28 ounces weekly per person exceeded what Germans received monthly. Even rationed, Americans maintained consumption levels Germans considered impossible luxury. Office of Price Administration records show Americans purchased 74 pounds of sugar per capita in 1944 despite rationing 10 times German consumption. Beyond Coca-Cola, prisoners discovered America's entire soft drink industry. Pepsi Cola, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, Orange Crush, and regional brands competed nationwide. The variety itself, multiple companies producing similar products, demonstrated market abundance impossible under Germany's controlled economy. Bottling plants operated in every major city. The technology, carbonation, bottling, capping, labeling, was standardized and efficient. Single plants produced millions of bottles annually. The distribution network reached every small town, gas station, and grocery store across the country. American soft drink production reached billions of bottles annually by war's end, dozens of bottles per American citizen yearly. This single industry's output exceeded entire sectors of German consumer production. Spring of 1945 brought the final psychological blow. As American forces advanced through Germany itself, German prisoners in America watched newsreels of GIs distributing chocolate and chewing gum to German children. These children's joy at receiving American candy, candy their own government couldn't provide, completed the ideological demolition. The contrast was brutal and undeniable. American soldiers advancing through enemy territory carried enough candy to give it away freely, while the German state that had promised triumph delivered only starvation. Films of concentration camp liberations showed American troops sharing rations with skeletal survivors, demonstrating humanity toward victims of the regime German soldiers had served. Another layer of cognitive dissonance that couldn't be reconciled with Nazi teaching. Between 1945 and 46, German prisoners of war returned to a destroyed homeland. Many prisoners had gained significant weight in American captivity, while their families had lost weight to starvation in German freedom. They brought knowledge of abundance to a land of absolute scarcity. Medical examinations showed German prisoners generally returned healthier than when they'd been captured, returning to families weakened by deprivation. This physical evidence of American plenty versus German deprivation was undeniable, written on their bodies. Many prisoners brought final Red Cross packages home, chocolate, coffee, and canned goods that became family treasures. Children who had forgotten what chocolate tasted like received Hershey bars from fathers who had eaten ice cream regularly in prison camps. A reversal so complete it defied comprehension. Former prisoners became unexpected advocates for the Marshall Plan. They had witnessed American abundance that wasn't zero-sum. Prosperity through production rather than conquest. Their testimony that Americans could afford to rebuild their enemies influenced German acceptance of American aid. These men understood that American power came from productive capacity, not extraction, not conquest. They had seen a society wealthy enough to waste food while fighting a global war. This mental model, creation rather than conquest, shaped West Germany's entire economic approach in the post-war years. The German economic miracle of the 1950s was partially built on knowledge gained in American prison camps. Former prisoners who had witnessed American production methods, distribution systems, and consumer abundance applied these lessons to German reconstruction. They had learned critical lessons that mass production could make luxuries affordable, that standardization enabled both quality and efficiency, that consumer abundance created political stability, that industrial democracy could outproduce authoritarian control every single time. These lessons, learned through Coca-Cola and ice cream, shaped a generation of German business and political leaders. The transformation of German prisoners through American food abundance is documented extensively in military quartermaster records, international Red Cross reports, corporate production records, particularly from Coca-Cola archives, prisoner correspondence that was censored but preserved, post-war interviews and memoirs and academic studies, particularly Arnold Kramer's extensive research. Kramer, the leading historian of German prisoners in America, concluded that food abundance was central to ideological transformation, His research confirmed that casual American plenty accomplished what formal re-education programs couldn't: the complete demolition of Nazi superiority myths. The statistical summary tells an irrefutable story. Average prisoner consumption from 43 to 46. Daily calories 3,300 to 3,600. Sugar 4 pounds monthly available. Meat 32 ounces weekly. Milk 1 quart daily available. Ice cream served regularly during summer. Soft drinks unlimited at 5 cents each. German civilian rations during the same period. Daily calories 1,200 to 1,500. Sugar 280 grams monthly when available. Meat 10.5 ounces weekly and often unavailable. Milk severely rationed. Ice cream non-existent. Soft drinks none available. These disparities weren't propaganda. They were documented reality. Enemy prisoners ate better than German civilians, proving American abundance extended even to defeated foes. The prisoner experience with American food culture influenced post-war Germany profoundly and permanently. Coca-Cola returned to West Germany in 1949, becoming a powerful symbol of American alliance. Ice cream parlors modeling American soda fountains appeared in German cities. Candy bars and chewing gum became symbols of recovery and hope. Former prisoners of war often became importers of American food products, understanding their appeal from deep personal experience. They knew these products represented more than just taste. They symbolized abundance, democracy, and modernity. The introduction of supermarkets to Germany in the 1950s was championed by former prisoners who had witnessed American grocery stores firsthand. They understood that democratic abundance required new distribution methods, not just production increases. In various post-war interviews and memoirs collected over decades, German prisoners consistently identified food abundance as the most transformative element of their captivity. A former Afrika Korps officer stated in a 1975 interview, "We expected to defeat a weak, divided America. Instead, we found a nation that could give ice cream to enemies. That's when we knew we had lost more than just a war. We had lost our entire worldview." Another veteran, interviewed for a documentary in 1985, recalled with crystal clarity, "My first Coca-Cola was like drinking the future itself. It was sweet, fizzing, completely unnecessary, and available to anyone for a nickel. That single drink contained everything Nazi Germany wasn't: abundant, democratic, joyful." These testimonies, collected across decades, confirm that American food abundance achieved what military defeat alone couldn't: complete ideological transformation. The men who arrived as Nazi warriors left as witnesses to democratic prosperity forever changed. Historians recognize the German prisoner experience in America as remarkably successful re-education through abundance rather than propaganda. The program succeeded because it relied on observation. Rather than instruction, prisoners saw American society functioning at peak productivity while treating enemies with dignity and respect. The food aspect was crucial because it was universal. Everyone understands hunger and satisfaction. It was undeniable. Weight gain and health improvement were visible and measurable. It was continuous. 3 meals daily, plus canteen purchases created constant reinforcement. It was comparative. Prisoners knew German deprivation intimately, living the contrast daily. Every meal became a lesson in American industrial capacity. Every Coca-Cola demonstrated standardization and distribution networks. Every ice cream sundae showed that abundance could be democratic, available to everyone, not just the elite. Children of prisoners of war grew up hearing stories about American abundance in prison camps. These stories, initially seeming fantastic and exaggerated, were validated as West Germany recovered, and American products became widely available. The mythology of American plenty, born in prison camps, shaped generations of German-American relations in the decades that followed. Many prisoner children later studied or worked in America, drawn by their fathers' stories of impossible abundance. They found the reality matched the tales: supermarkets stocked with overwhelming variety, soda fountains serving sundaes, candy aisles offering dozens of choices. This multi-generational impact extended far beyond individuals. West German business culture absorbed fundamental lessons about consumer abundance, quality standardization, and democratic markets. The economic miracle wasn't just about increasing production, it was about creating abundance for ordinary citizens, democratizing prosperity. Today, McDonald's operates over 1,400 restaurants in Germany. Coca-Cola is as ubiquitous there as anywhere on Earth. Ice cream is ordinary, unremarkable. The transformation from scarcity to abundance, initiated in American prison camps during World War II, is complete and irreversible. Yet the historical lesson remains powerful and relevant. Ideological transformation through abundance rather than deprivation. Kindness rather than cruelty. Demonstration rather than propaganda. The German prisoners who couldn't believe ice cream and Coca-Cola existed in American prison camps witnessed democracy's ultimate weapon, the ability to create such vast abundance that it could be casually shared with enemies. The story of German prisoners and American food abundance represents history's most unusual victory. A war won through generosity, an ideology defeated by ice cream, a worldview shattered by soft drinks. These men experienced transformation not through punishment, but through plenty, through witnessing what was possible when freedom and industry combined. They arrived believing in German superiority and American weakness. They left understanding that American strength came from productive capacity, so vast it could waste resources without concern. The society that could give Coca-Cola to prisoners for 5 cents possessed power beyond military might, power that couldn't be conquered or destroyed. The ice cream sundae, with its layers of excess, ice cream, syrup, whipped cream, nuts, cherry, became a perfect metaphor for American abundance. Each component alone exceeded German dreams of luxury. Combined, they represented impossible extravagance made routine, made ordinary. That enemies could order seconds while German children faced hunger revealed the totality of Nazi failure with brutal clarity. Former prisoners often recalled specific moments of revelation with vivid detail even decades later. The first Coca-Cola's fizz tickling their throat, the first spoonful of ice cream melting on their tongue, the first bite of a Hershey bar, smooth and sweet. These sensory memories carried more power than any logical argument could. They had tasted democracy, and it was sweet. Undeniably, unforgettably sweet. The transformation was complete and irreversible. Men who had marched for the Third Reich, who had believed in Nazi superiority, returned home as apostles of abundance, carrying a revolutionary message that prosperity came from freedom, not conquest. They had learned that America's secret weapon wasn't tanks or bombs or planes. It was the simple, staggering ability to give ice cream to enemies. In the end, the bottles of Coca-Cola and dishes of ice cream served in American prison camps achieved what armies alone could only attempt: the complete transformation of enemy hearts and minds. Written in sugar and cream and carbonation, the German prisoners, who couldn't believe such abundance could exist, became its greatest witnesses, its most powerful advocates. They carried home the truth that democracy tasted like chocolate and freedom fizzed like carbonation in a cold bottle on a hot summer day. Their story reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories aren't won through destruction, but through demonstration. Not through taking, but through giving. Not through hatred, but through the simple, profound act of serving ice cream to enemies on a sweltering summer afternoon. The men who experienced American abundance as prisoners became freedom's most unlikely ambassadors, transformed forever by the impossible, undeniable reality of Coca-Cola and ice cream in American prison camps. A reality that changed not just the war, but the world that came after.